Welcome to the How to Find and Keep a Gay Man podcast. I'm Matt Bays, your host, with Matt Heinker, your co-host. And we're here to provide bitchy wisdom for the gay man looking for love. There are a lot of gay men out there looking for a meaningful love experience, and we are here to help. You can follow How to Find and Keep a Gay Man on Instagram and TikTok, where you'll find all sorts of bitchy wisdom about what it's going to take to find and keep a gay man. Welcome. We're glad you're here. I am stressed out over this subject.
You and me both. It's a hot potato.
Since you and I have been talking, I've been exploring a lot. I probably have easily 20 hours into research over the last week.
Oh, wow.
I have read everything that can be read, and I've gone deep into every article and every statistic. And there is a lot about this issue that is polarizing.
Yep.
So I really want to not just come from a place of here's the right answer.
Yeah.
I really want to come from a place of seeking to understand, of making space for people who might be in open relationships.
Yeah.
And taking them at their word and taking them seriously while also sifting through all of the reporting that you and I have both read separately.
And honestly, I think that's the posture that we are attempting to have on all of these topics. You know, first of all, we say we're not necessarily experts. This is our experience. This is what has worked for us. And also, people are going to disagree on our point of view in a lot of these areas. This is probably the most polarizing one by far. But I think it's important that we have respect for other people's opinions on this, and we need to start out saying that for sure.
And one of the reasons that it's polarizing, Matt, is because from my estimation, 2/3, 67%, somewhere in there, of gay men are involved in consensual, non-monogamous relationships.
For sure.
And there's all the words. There's polyamory, there's cuckolding, there's non-consensual, there's consensual, all of these different words, and they all mean different things, but the statistics and the problem with the statistics is so much of this is based when you're Googling information or researching information on gay marriages that are open that fail. We have to know that those percentages can either look really, really high, because people are reporting at 82%, or they can look like 5% because marriage has been legalized for us for a short amount of time. And so the percentages look lower because there hasn't been the time. So lesbian marriages fail 17% of the time is what the reports. But we all know that their marriages, the divorce rate is higher for lesbian marriages than any marriages.
Yeah.
Okay. But it's still reporting at 17%. So it's like, oh my God, well, the national average is 50%. But that's based on years and years and years, decades, of heterosexual marriages where they're not counting those in most of the statistics. They're starting at whenever it became legal, which was 2015. Yeah. So at the end of the day, nobody's trying to be right here. We're trying to get information and to have a conversation and not really come to the table to prove a point. Okay. We're looking for the best way we can to find and keep a gay man. Mm-hmm. That's our goal.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say all of that up front because it makes me feel ready. If I had had this conversation 2 weeks ago with you, it would have been an entirely different conversation from my point of view because I had dug in my heels. Yeah. And I have opened up since then. A lot of the information hasn't changed in my head, but I'm trying to wrap my head around there are very intelligent people out there that are in open marriages that seem to work for them. That is not something that I, at this point in time, would be open to. And that may lead some people to believe, give him a few years. He's only been married for, just over a year. What I know about me is that probably not. And we can get into why that is regarding what kind of people are wired for this
For
versus
sure.
those who aren't, which is me.
Yeah. And me. Yeah. I shared with you, I mean, people, listeners of ours that I know, I mean, I've been specifically on this issue, have had some pretty heated feedback, saying that we're trying to push monogamy and it's just residual from our religious background, all this kind of stuff. And I think we start out also by saying that is not the case. We are trying to find and keep a gay man. We're trying to preserve and protect the love and the connection that we have. And how do we best do that? That's the posture that we're sitting in. So we're not trying to force monogamy on anyone, but I think I think we're being courageous enough to suggest a path that is very much countercultural or in the minority in our community.
It is.
Yeah.
So when you talk to heteros about this, Matt, they don't even understand because it's like 5% out there of them, where it's like verging on 70% for us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So this is a countercultural message for our community. And I think that is problematic. I think the fact that it's 70%, that's problematic because there's no way, based on the research we've done, that many people are wired to successfully do it.
Yes.
Yes.
And that leads us to, well, first of all, hold that thought, because I do want to say the idea that we are coming or just informed, we're all informed by our past, but coming to these conversations from a religious background, no, that is not where we are coming from.
Yeah.
This isn't about that. But yes, is there a spiritual aspect to it? Absolutely, because we're spiritual people.
For sure. Absolutely.
Yeah. But this has nothing to do with measuring, the laws of the Bible up to what our beliefs are here. This is completely separate from that.
Absolutely.
Okay. So one of the things that I thought was very compelling is when it talks about who's wired for open relationships and what it takes to get there.
For sure.
And one of the standouts for me, Matt, is people with what it would call excellent or above average problem-solving abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Sounds innocuous enough, but I don't have those.
Most of us do not.
Okay. So I've known people in my life that I've been like, that person, what they're really good at? They can just meet a problem and seem to solve it very unemotionally. And they just can seem to get to the bottom of it quickly.
Mm-hmm.
We all have different giftings, things that we're good at. I'm really good at loving people. I'm good at staying connected to people. Yep. I am not a great problem solver. Okay. So one of the reasons that that's a standout is because if you are in an open relationship, what it requires is that because it is going to raise problems. It is.
That you're going to have to navigate. Yes.
There is a therapist out there who does believe in open marriage, and he does conferences and talks about it a lot, written books on it. I can't remember his name off the top of my head, but this guy says that people always come with their agenda of let's make rules for an open marriage. We're going to do this. You can only be with a person 3 times. I do want to know about the person. I don't want to know about the person. It can't be in our bedroom. It can't be for longer than a year, or it can't be for more than one time. All of these different rules that we're putting in place to try and make sure that this goes smoothly. And he says, I don't even talk to them about the rules because inevitably we're humans and all of that changes. We're building rules as a form of control.
Yeah.
But he says, so I don't even talk about those. What I talk about is bonding to that other person, because the rules are going to change, period. If you think you're setting up rules to keep yourself safe, that is not going to do it for you.
You have to be bonded to your primary partner above all else.
Yes.
And how does he suggest doing that in the midst of all of this?
Well, let me get to my shit.
Well, I think it's crazy that it says, forget about rules, that you don't have any control. Just make sure that you're bonded. Well, what eats at your bond is having sex with someone else. So how do we do that?
That's a good point. I think more what he's saying is not that you shouldn't have rules. He's saying the rules are what everybody heralds as the most important thing. And it's really, really not the most important. You can have your rules and set your rules, but know that all of those rules are going to change.
Just make sure that in the midst of an open relationship, regardless of what the rules are, the ever-changing rules, that you remain connected to your primary partner and you're at least intentional about that.
Yeah.
Okay. That seems very fluffy for me, but God bless him for telling us that. See, and I personally, I touched on this a little bit with when we had Alicia on a couple of weeks ago. This hits close to home for me because one of my first, I would say my first really significant relationship as I came out was in a consensual non-monogamous marriage. So I met a married couple. They've been married for quite a while. They've been open for many years. And initially, there's a long story how I met these guys, but beautiful boys, a lot of fun, and had zero experience with this. I had no idea what I was getting myself into. And I was very hesitant to even engage with this because it seemed crazy to me, especially given my background. But I was like, you know what? I mean, I was trying to find my way. I'm going to give this a shot. And we were in an open relationship. The idea initially was for me to date both of them, but inevitably, and I said this earlier, you were going to have a favorite, and the older of the two husbands, I just really, really connected with. And he and I really developed pretty strong feelings for each other. We had incredible chemistry, and it was really a pretty overwhelming experience. And we fell. I mean, I'm not going to say that I fell in love with him. I had really strong feelings for him, but after a few months, the rules that we initially set up were completely disintegrated after 2 or 3 months.
Tell me about that. I think that's important.
Yeah. So the rule was, first of all, if I was going to go on a date with one of them and or have a sexual experience with one of them, then it was the other one's turn before I went out with that first person again. So that was the initial setup. Well, I went on a date with one of them and then I went on a date with the other. I didn't really like the other one. We didn't really connect very well. He was pretty to look at. We didn't have a lot in common. I didn't really have a lot of chemistry with him. I never had a sexual experience with him. So literally after 2 or 3 weeks, I was like, called a team meeting and I was like, hey, I don't really know how this works. Please be patient with me. But husband number one, I'm kind of digging him. No offense. But I would like to continue the relationship with you within whatever new rules we're going to initiate. And so then the new rule was only once a week. We can only have sex twice a month. And that went out the window in another month. And pretty soon I was seeing him every few days and we were in a very intense sexual and emotional relationship. And after 3 months, I wanted him to be my boyfriend. And I didn't say that, but I did. And he came to my house in the middle of the night one day. It was very dramatic. Could have been a movie. And he was like, I'm falling in love with you.
Was it raining?
Oh God, I wish it was raining. It was not raining.
Damn it.
But he did look so cute though. He was real muscly and had a wife beater on. He came to my door and I just melted because I developed such strong feelings for him. And I knew the entire time that this was a mess. I could just feel it in my gut. Not because I had any moral issues with it at that point in my life. It felt messy. And he said, I'm falling in love with you. I want to leave my husband. I don't know what I'm going to do. I've never had a connection like this with anyone before. He was crying. And I knew that I could not allow him to do that because it just didn't feel right for a lot of reasons. And we both, after a couple of days of pretty intense struggle, agreed together. I said, you have got to go back and work in your relationship. You guys have been married for 11 years. You've built a life together. And I'm newly out, I'm still finding my own way. I can't ask you to do this. It's not right, Mm-hmm. And so we agreed to have one last night together and it was quite a night. And then the morning he bawled and gave me a hug and said, I'll never forget me. And I said, I love you and I wish you well. I'm always here for you if you need something, but go make things right with your husband. And I let him go and I cried all the way home and I was a wreck for months. And it was a really painful experience that, I'm grateful for the experience because I learned a lot from it. But because of that, you're going to have to really convince me that this is a viable option. And they had been open for many years and had other people that was their third. So they had experience doing this. And even people with experience, it went sideways real bad because you never know what the chemistry is going to be like when you introduce that third person. You don't know how far it's going to go emotionally. You cannot control that. We're human.
Right. And it's the problem with rules like no kissing, don't look them in the eyes.
Oh,
I mean,
geez.
these are actual rules.
I'm sure
these
they
are
are
rules. Okay. But I think some people would say by what happened with you and this guy that was successful because you actually did adhere to the rule established. You broke it, you moved it or changed it. But in the end, you said, go back to your husband. And I'm telling you that I would not have said that.
Really?
Hell no. Not if I had found love or what I felt like was probably blossoming into love. I don't think that I would have been able to stop that. So maybe somebody more wired like you're an 8 on the Enneagram. So you tend to be, there's rules and you think about rules.
I'm not a rule follower. I'm always in control though,
That's a big part of this.
Yeah. I could see forward far enough to know that what we had would be totally fucked if he made that decision. It was going to have too many consequences attached to it,
Yeah. So I've been watching that show, Looking, that you recommended to me. It's from 2014 on HBO Max.
Love
2
it.
seasons. How that show did not make it, I have no idea. It's my new favorite show.
Me too.
I mean, the writing is wonderful. And then there's a movie that completes it, which I watched last night. So I've been through it and I was a mess watching some of that stuff.
Yeah.
The love triangle. I can't.
Yes. It was so good. Yeah.
But what I really appreciate more than anything about that show, Matt, is that every person, there's no villain in this cast. And even the supporting actors that are the boyfriends that we're not really supposed to like, even them, they're not villains. They are really trying. These are people that are really trying to find their way and to make things work, because romance and love and relationships is just a fucked up mess sometimes. Hard to understand, hard to sift through, hard to move through. And I really appreciate that everybody was trying. And so I had this moment of awareness this morning as I spent a lot of time alone this morning thinking through this stuff about, while I do not believe, for me especially, that open relationship is the way, I think people that are engaging in that are looking for solutions. They are looking for solutions to a monotonous relationship that's not working for them. And I really would say, before hopping into this thing, go down the list of other possible fixes before you wade into those waters, because those seem like the waters that there's no take backs.
For sure. I think you at least want to exhaust all the possibilities that are less risky before you go to that.
Thank you. Yeah.
I think, we talk about tending to your gay man every day, maintaining the connection, and lots of other podcasts we've talked about what that looks like. Again, we're not experts, but I sit here as a 41-year-old man who's been through a lot of things and found love. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine that you get to a place where if your relationship is monotonous or you're disconnected. For me, that typically, and again, we cannot make a blanket statement because everyone has different experiences, but it typically speaks to the fact that for whatever reason, you've lost the connection because you've lost the desire, the motivation, whatever, to continue to stay connected to each other, to tend to each other's needs, to be intimate with each other. And there are a lot of ways, Alicia said when she met with us, she said, couples who have lost interest in sex, get the interest back. That's a crucial part of staying connected. And that was the case with this couple that I engaged with. They had lost sexual interest in each other. Now, of course, if you're together for years and years at a time, I'm sure that ebbs and flows and that you got to navigate that type of stuff. But I can't help but believe that with effort and real love for someone, you can keep that intact and beautiful and satisfying if it's something that is important to both of you. I feel like when you're to the point where you're so bored with the monotony of your relationship, you haven't been emotionally connected for a long time. And so it seems exciting to sleep with someone else.
Yeah.
And that is not the case for every scenario, as we want to be careful to always say. That was the case in the one that I engaged in. And as I see it around me in my own community, it seems to me like most of them fall into that category. And so can we be aware of that as a community and exhaust the possibilities that are not going to be risky before we get to that. For me, that feels like a last ditch effort to keep your relationship together.
Sure. Like, let's try this and see if this will redeem it. But what all of the research says, and this is on the side of people who are affirming of open relationships and aren't affirming of them, is that if there are problems in your relationship, opening the marriage will not solve those problems.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. And that's, like I said, that's on both sides. That's what they're saying. If this is something that you want to do, fine. But if there's communication problems, if there are trust issues, if there are financial problems, if there's rearing child problems, this is not going to fix that.
For sure.
And as you said, is it worth the risk? That's the part that I feel, I was talking to Chris about this today with tears in my eyes, because I think of people who have something really special and they feel this sense of, I'm not gay woke if I don't engage in this sort of thing. All of my friends are. It's almost like a little bit of a peer pressure kind of thing.
For sure.
And people who have put their great connected relationship out there and taken the risk and lost it. It's devastating. It's tragic. And so I don't want people going into this thinking, here's a solution, or, hey, we can do this. I mean, everybody else seems to be doing it and they're fine. And what we find out behind the scenes is they're actually not fine.
So do you think we should share some of the overarching repeated statistics attached to this?
Absolutely.
I think that's helpful. I know you've got a lot of them in your pocket. As I was looking over a lot of the stats, it was funny. I felt like in almost every one of the studies, there was loneliness, psychological distress, heavy drinking or drug use. There were side effects of the distress that comes from these relationships, for a lot of them. More than half in every study experience a lot of negative side effects in these directions. So forget about the relationship crumbling. They, as a person, were not thriving in this environment. And that really struck me. But what are some of the things you have?
Well, there was a really in-depth study over a period of years in New Zealand, and they said it could be different in other countries, but it said it didn't cause depression or anxiety in the people that they studied. And they studied 3 categories of people, like 21, 26, and 30 some years old. But what it did cause was there was higher substance abuse for people who had numerous partners. Okay. And that was statistically higher for women than for men, the substance abuse, but that it was notable, the difference. Also, there is this European open marriage statistics show that consensual non-monogamous people are less satisfied with their sexual life than people in monogamous relationships.
Interesting. Okay.
But then in this same article, open marriages statistics suggest that 80 to 90% of people in open marriages felt happier after they started to engage in swinging. So I was like, wait, okay, what?
Whiplash. Yeah.
Yeah. But then they also say data shows that open relationships tend to work best in the short term, while open marriages have a low success rate. And then they do go on to say open marriage has a 92% failure rate. 80% of the people in open marriages today experience jealousy of the other. And that could, explain the high rate of failure. Jealousy is definitely a big part of that. And so when you would try to establish rules around that, jealousy is not going to be compelled or held in by a rule. It's just jealousy.
That's a good point. And we were talking the other day, and I think this is a really good point we should share. You showed me that statistic, and you're like, we have to be really open to the fact that this does work for some people. It does. So it apparently, per this study, works for 8%. So we're not going to say that it doesn't happen or that it might not be a viable option for you. But if you had 100 people, 50 couples come into a room and you were going to be like, hey, we're going to do a study. You all are going to be open, but only 8% of you are going to leave this study still together.
That's four couples out of 50.
4 couples. So 4 of you are going to still be together. The rest of you are going to be arguing over who gets the coffee table, like,
or who gets the
engaged.
boyfriend.
Or who gets the boyfriend. Exactly. How many of them are going to walk through the door to start the study when they get that on the front end? And so that's what we have to be aware of.
And some would be willing to take the risk because they would say, well, here's where we are. If we don't try this, we're just ending it now.
Yeah.
So we're at least going to try this and see if we can solve this problem.
And I don't want to be a judgy bitch, but if you need for your relationship to be open to make it work, is it a really good pair? Is it an excellent life-altering pair? What do you think?
Well, there is another study that talks about that and says, in order to sustain this, and this is another group. It's like Katie Couric something. I don't even know where I found this, but Katie Couric seems like a reputable reporter on this, of saying that if you are going to do this, an open marriage, you need to be a nearly perfect couple with communication, chemistry, all the things, right?
Yeah.
Trust, intimacy, which begs the question, if you're a nearly perfect couple, why would you need to do this and take that risk?
And if you're on the verge of breaking up already, you're going to throw in a really difficult triangle into your relationship and expect to emerge still together. Just statistically seems unlikely. So again, we're not reporting an agenda. We're reporting the news, as you say. And that's what we need to soberly look at before we engage in this.
Okay. There is one thing that I found really interesting too, where one guy was talking about the evolution of marriage and saying that while we may not be there right now, that this kind of open marriage ideal is something that could be evolving with how marriage exists in our world. So maybe 50 years from now, maybe 100 years from now, all of this will look different. It's like nudist beaches. In Europe, people just take them off, let their tits fly free and walk the beaches and don't think a thing about it, right?
Yeah.
We're over here, we're more like, oh my God, look how crazy I am. And they're like, I'm sorry, what's the issue?
It's not a cultural thing for us over here.
Exactly. So we think we're doing something scandalous and they don't. So that's just showing a short evolving kind of thing. That's what I'm comparing it to, is that there could be, and it doesn't specify that there is, but there is some sort of evolution to marriage that has happened over the years. And maybe on down the road, it will look differently, but we're dealing with today, the present.
Yes.
And the present says it's going to be tough for you to actually get there. Most of you won't. So be careful out there.
Yeah. We one day may live on Mars as well, but I'm not looking at real estate there quite yet. We're dealing with today.
Yes, I'm with you on that. So if somebody came to me, I could not say to somebody, have you tried opening your marriage? My God, that would just be like a last resort. Like, let's not even start there. Let's just not do that. I don't even want to go there.
I've got something to share that is kind of a reverse on this that I found that I thought was fascinating. There was a study by researchers Lowen and Spears, who are coincidentally a married couple, 30 plus year married couple that are in an open relationship.
Okay,
interesting.
Great.
Who did this study. And they did 832 gay males in the US between ages 18 and 39. And this study found that younger gay couples are more inclined to monogamy than their older counterparts, which I thought was interesting. So a study of 18 and 39, 92% reported that they saw themselves getting married one day. Of couples in this group, 86% were monogamous, only 14% were non-monogamous, and 90% of the single participants stated that they were ideally seeking a monogamous partner. Isn't that interesting?
Ages 18 to what?
To 39. The study also found that 44% of singles from 26 to 40 were open to the possibility of non-monogamous relationships, but only 29% of those 25 and under were open to that idea. So basically, the younger they were, the more inclined they were to good old-fashioned monogamy. And one participant wrote, "My impression is that younger people are oriented toward monogamy. The reason is the fact that gay culture is becoming assimilated into the mainstream, and monogamy is part of the assimilation and the dream that our hetero counterparts get to take hold of and enjoy. The idea of finding and settling down with your soulmate is desirable, and with gay marriage, it is easier to envision and more attainable to achieve today. I thought that was fascinating.
Tell me what that means to you, what you just read.
What it means to me, first of all, I don't think that our community, we were in the shadows for so long. We were in the bathhouses, we were cruising and parks and whatever. And gay culture is becoming more mainstream. Gay rights are assumed in educated circles now. Gay marriage has been legal for almost 10 years now. So I do believe that there's less of a stigma to be in our community. And it's understood that we would be able to have the same things that heteronormative culture would. I've certainly reached for that, both in my career and my personal life. And so I think that is a dream that was maybe not as possible or crystal or easy to envision for past generations that went through the AIDS epidemic and whatever else. So that's what it means to me.
Okay.
But this is really interesting. The second piece they hear. Another participant wrote, they felt pressure by members of the gay community to open up their relationship. This one wrote specifically, quote, I don't feel supported by the gay community in having a monogamous relationship. In fact, the norm seems to be open relationships, and we feel judged, even pressured to open things up when people find out that we're monogamous. That just blew my mind. And that has been exactly my experience in this community. Ty and I have never been open. We've never even discussed the possibility of being open, and we get shade and pressure and comments and side eye, even from our closest friends, and have for years, because they don't really believe that what we have is sustainable.
Matt, that may be what it seems like, but I think with any of us, when we're pressuring somebody to do something that we're already doing, it could also be just, I need validation. You put a stamp approval on what I'm doing. Yeah.
And certainly that's a part of it. But I think that it's really interesting that the younger generations, we talked a couple of weeks ago how you found some study that Generation Z is not having sex on the first date. And we thought that was interesting. Like they're going old fashioned.
Percentages are down. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a refreshing statistic, but it's interesting to me that there's a certain cutoff in age where you're not going to be supported in that viewpoint because it's just what we've always done for so long.
Yeah.
And so again, that 70% or 70% really wired for this, or are they pressured into it because it's culturally accepted or expected? I mean, I think that's more the case. The reality has to be that a very, very small few people can actually do this successfully and keep their relationship together in a meaningful, beautiful, sustainable way.
I have one couple that goes through my mind because when I met them, they were in an open relationship and they still are, still together. And this was probably about 7 years ago. And they were together, I think, for 2 years then. And so I'm assuming 9 years they've been together now, young. And one of them I like, and one of them is not nice. But they have done this for a lot of years. And I just thought this isn't sustainable, especially then. I was like, this just doesn't work. And a lot of it then was my background. I had no category for this in my head of watching people do this successfully. And they're a younger couple, verging on 32 to 35. Okay. So they got together fairly young. And I'm watching them still celebrate each other's successes in their career. One of them was sick recently and the other one was there for them. But these boys, one of them reached out to me when I had my breakup and was like, hey, let's get together and have some fun. And of course, it was the one that I don't like.
That's how it goes. Yeah.
Which I wouldn't have either way. But I'm watching them and who knows? I don't know what they have. I'm not in their home. But, these are smart people and good for them. I don't want to see them fall apart. I hope it does last. And I hope it works for them. And it seems like so far it is great.
Yeah.
But we still have to remember that just because it's working for them doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Yeah.
Everything is up for grabs when, you adopt a child and have a sick child, or the kid is struggling in school and the stresses of life come into play here.
Sure.
I mean, this is a real easy place to go into jealousy, or I'm angry with my spouse, or we're not aligning on a lot of things. And we know sex is a place we run to
medicate.
Yes, to medicate. And so when you're doing that, you start violating rules, or this person makes me feel really good. We're only supposed to meet 3 times, and now I want to meet more. Or like you said, we can have sex once a month or twice a month, and now we're meeting up every 3 days.
Well, and how easy is it to idealize? This is what happened in my experience, to idealize this person who you're not in a relationship, sharing a home and a bank account and a bathroom with. Like I had this beautiful muscly boy I'd go meet with and have an amazing sexual experience, and we parted and didn't see each other until we were ready to do it again. Well, that's not a relationship, but it's really easy to fantasize what that is and let it be disruptive.
Yes.
To the real relationship that you have that you're trying to protect.
Because you're not dealing with his abuse of credit cards or the possibility that he's not nice to your children.
Exactly.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's real life.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now I'm shit up a creek.
I tell you what, I was like, you ain't going to leave your husband. I don't know what your credit score is. Hello, come on now.
So I guess what we're saying on this more than anything is it feels to me like this is just a warning of another voice and an unpopular voice in our community of saying, we've oversold this. We've
oversold it. At least we can say that with confidence. It's been oversold. Proceed with caution.
2/3 of people are involved in it, and it seems like believe in it, and not even a 10th survive it, at least based on our current studies. And maybe that number will go up, but say it goes up to 20%, still that would be 1 in 5. I mean, and it's not at 20%. So, and the one other thing that I want to at least say is if you are being pressured into an open relationship, 100% no. If that is not something you can do, that is not something that you can do.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean anything about you. And we're going to get into that in prayer time.
That's beautiful. Ty and I were on vacation in Mexico last year, and we were at a gay resort. So we were just meeting people from all over the country and chatting. It was a good time. And we struck up a conversation with this one boy from California. And he was telling us he was there by himself, but he was talking about his boyfriend. We're like, where's your boyfriend? He's like, oh, he's not going to get here till tomorrow. There was a guy he wanted to hook up with, so he decided to come and get a day later. And we were like, wow. And he's like, yeah, we've been together for 2 years. And about 3 months ago, he decided that it was really important for him to be open. And it really wasn't something that I was real excited about. But, if he wants it, I want him to be happy. And so I just said it was okay. So we're giving this a whirl. And he was telling us this, and he literally started to get tears in his eyes. And we don't even know this person. And he was like, no, I really do want it because I want him to be happy.
Of course he does.
And I was just like, baby boy, it just broke my heart because he was pressured into it and was very clearly uncomfortable with it. And, I can't imagine that that's not the case also a decent amount of the time. I think if, you're that really unique needle in a haystack and it works for both of you, mazel tov. But
can we just say in that pairing there of those boys that the boy that wants the open relationship is not a villain? We don't need to villainize him.
No.
He wants something else.
He wants something else.
And the other wants something else. And those things create a bad pairing, period.
Absolutely. Yeah. I love that you said that. He's not a villain. He wants something different. Maybe they're not a good pair, whatever. But that really stayed with me, especially after my own experience being in an open relationship. So boys, just be careful.
Let's say more than be careful. Be real careful. Really consider. Yeah. Get out your notepad, take notes, think, pray, meditate, see a therapist. All of that before you engage in something that has a high probability that it's not going to work for you.
And keep your hands off my man, because I will take my clip-ons off.
Yeah.
I can't imagine sharing time. That ain't going to happen.
Oh, girl, I would be the ugliest broad on the street. It wouldn't even, all of this that seems like I've got it together, I'd be a hot mess, crackhead, roaming the streets with one high heel on and one barefoot. I could not do it.
I love you, but you totally would. And the footage would be funny.
We are going to hit prayer time. I'm going to say one more time before we go into this that no part of me is trying to control others from doing what their heart believes that they need to do. That's not what this is about. It is about an alternative view in our community that is trying to keep people safe in their relationships that they adore, that is their prized possession.
Absolutely. What you got for us, Reverend Silky?
Dear everyone, a reminder that we are on the same team, a team that desires to love and be loved. Speaking of open relationships, to the I'm wired for it peeps. You believe that an open relationship works for you and yours, and we genuinely hope so, though it's too early for a reliable statistic. Our advice? Ask yourself if sex with someone besides your partner is merely about sex, because there could be deeper issues perpetuating this desire. If there are, it's important to know what those issues are and if they are repairable, which we recommend doing before inviting hot young pool boy into your cabana. There are good men who've lost amazing life partners this exact way, and compromising a life-giving relationship for a little game of tickle butt is just tragic. To the I'm not wired for it peeps. Please know that not being wired for sex with more than one person doesn't mean that you're not gay woke. If you are being pressured by your significant other into what feels like an indecent proposal, well, take your embroidery shears to his favorite caftan until he realizes you're not interested in third-party bits and pieces.
Woo, preach now.
And if you can't find agreement on this issue, it might be time to walk away. Because if you are not wired for an open relationship, it simply means you are not wired for an open relationship. And there's not a damn thing wrong with that or wrong with you. As Queen Brené has told us in The Gifts of Imperfection, fitting in is about assessing a situation and becoming who you need to be in order to be accepted. But belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. If there's such a thing as a gay slam dunk, there 'twas, my little fagaroos. Know your limits and stick to them. Know who you are and keep beautifully being that. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Hallelujah.
And amen.
Another beautiful prayer. Thank you so much. There was some heavy lifting today, but we did it.
There was some heavy lifting, Matt, and I'm telling you, taking time to research this, have conversations with people, and really go inside and think about it has helped me, I think, to be more adept at having this conversation. I don't think it's changed my mind for me, but it has opened me up to what possibilities other people are experiencing.
Absolutely.
But if Chris wants to have an open relationship, I'm gonna have to get on that one high heel and that fucked up denim jean skirt and walk the streets.
Mascara be running, you shouting.
All right, I love you, Matthew.
I love you too. Until next time, live in rivers of self-love.
Always.
1, 2, 3, 4.
That's it for us today. For more bitchy wisdom, follow How to Find and Keep a Gay Man on Instagram and TikTok at, you guessed it, How to Find and Keep a Gay Man. And until we meet again, get a therapist, don't be an asshole, protect yourself, call your mom, and remember that you deserve a meaningful love. Bye.